Welcome back here at Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about the mess in the Netherlands. And if I was some Steve Turley style pontificator, I'd be here going, "Oh, everyone, this is another strong national populist winning the day, and liberal heads are exploding. It's amazing." Well, in truth, that's all stupidity. And you can say, "Oh, negative, nitpicking, defeatism." Well, that's because you're immunized against reality. You want to be in the bubble. This is all the politics of spectacle, where an election exists for the sole purpose of persuading low IQ conservatives and boomers that they matter. They have a voice and a stake, when in truth it's just the elites tossing a few scraps here and about. Geert Wilders is not a Nazi or a fascist or a nationalist or anything close to that. He's basically a disgruntled baby boomer social democrat. You have to understand for a second, the only hardcore right-wing movements off the top of my head in Europe would be Forza Nuova, very small, and the Golden Dawn. You saw what happened to them when they were speaking truth to power. This is just another, not even a Republican Party. It's more watered down because in the United States, there are some Republicans like Steve Israel that are pretty hardcore. Not Trump, of course. But in Europe, most of them, like I said, they're just leftists who are upset with the decay of society in some shape or form. And remember, Wilders is an atheist, somewhat of a cultural Christian like Ayaan Hirsi Ali, same thing. They are not these warriors for traditionalism like some might believe. The Netherlands for a long time has been enriching itself with diversity, much like the UK. And none of these politicians intend to reverse that. Like the UK, well, we'll toss the Republic of Ireland in because we know it's not a sovereign country. So their Taoiseach or prime minister is a curry cell power bottom. The head of the Scottish government is neither Scottish nor Christian, actually a Muslim. The head of the UK government is not English or Scottish and not even a Christian. Many of the English or Scottish people that are part of the UK government are not married to English or Scottish people. And you have these weird interplays. Like in the Netherlands, the second largest party at this point, or the third largest party, it's the Party for Freedom and Democracy, which is something of a pro business conservative party. The head is now a Turkish woman, and she was part of the thrust, which she's now rescinded, of trying to block high rates of migration. Much like in the UK, you've got Suella Braverman, who looks like a Muppets character, castigating Rishi Sunak for not doing enough on mass immigration. They're both direct beneficiaries of mass immigration. It's just hilarious. I mean, Western civilization is a complete joke. There's not many other ways to put it. But regardless, in the Netherlands, it's not the question of diversity so much as Muslim cells. Because the Muslim cells, they won't show up and just wear skinny jeans, shave their beards, and talk about gay equality. They want to import a state within a state, their own culture and traditions. And this is triggering to these old style boomer conservatives like Wilders. It's somewhat a tune, not a perfect comparison. You know how in the US you have the Fox News viewers who are big football fans and they love their team, they love their players and the fan dueling, and then they get angry because some of those players start expressing their own opinions on issues like social equality or bowel movements matter. They get very offended, and it's tearing away at this notion of harmony between the races and everyone's American and all that. So very much the same, that the Wilders types in his Party for Freedom, they're irritated because they see this basically imposition on their secular liberal society. But if the Muslims could be assimilated, it wouldn't really be that big of a deal, ultimately. And so that's where the conflict comes by. For some reason, many people on the dissident right are simps for Muslim cells. And they don't realize that large amounts of Muslim cells, they have no problem defiling your sister or your daughter, beheading you. But what can you do? You know, Caucasians, I've learned, are basically slaves. Many of them have the Nextzila, the inborn slave soul. They spend their entire lives hiding behind minorities and euphemisms instead of expressing what they really truly believe and want. I suppose it's because if they side with the Muslim cells, it's going against the other group, which admittedly, Wilders is a shill for Care Bears. Just like Millet, I was trying to warn you guys, and no one wants to pay attention. The first thing he did is he became a Care Bear right after becoming president. This is like a humiliation ritual. No, not many other ways to put it, my friends. Wilders came out of a tradition that was heralded by Fritz Blockenstein, a member of the Party for Freedom and Democracy. They were saying, oh, these Muslim cells are making it unsafe for Care Bears to live in the Netherlands. The Netherlands, of course, has a substantial Care Bear population, especially in Amsterdam. No big surprise there. Another character of note was Pim Fortuyn. He was a Catholic homosexual activist against Islam. He was assassinated by a Muslim cell, much like Theo van Gogh, a documentary filmmaker, was murdered brutally by a Muslim cell. So that's really the tradition you're coming out of, is our society of secular liberalism and Christian tolerance is under threat by the Muslim cells. It has to be dealt with. What exactly does Wilders propose? What does his party want? This is where it gets a bit more complicated. So they favor, of course, reducing migration, although not ending it. They want to cut off dual citizenship for lawmakers. Now, I don't know if that would apply to Care Bears as well. That could be a bit of a problem, but that's actually a good idea. I wouldn't be against it in the United States, that proposal. They want to tax or ban the hijab and to basically, it's about trying to ensure that hijabis can't stay hidden. So he's actually making a good point, which is that don't let them have the illusion. I see a lot of these women walk around the United States with the headscarf and they're SJWs, they're hoes, but they like to act, oh, it's so dignified and I'm devout. It's nonsensical. But that probably won't happen realistically with a coalition government. Even the laws in the Netherlands are pretty very much in favor of free expression, religious expression. So I doubt that will occur. And he wants to shut down mosques, which is almost certainly not going to happen. He also wants a referendum on the EU. I don't know that his likely coalition partners would agree to that. Even if they do, here's the tricky part about leaving the EU. Farage and his followers were complaining we can't control our borders unless we leave the EU. We have all these Romanians and Bulgarians and Poles that are flooding into the country, taking the jobs. And actually, Party for Freedom representatives in the Netherlands have made the same complaint about Eastern Europeans. But what happens is once the UK left the EU, most of their immigration started coming from UK Commonwealth realms. So the Caribbean, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, LOL.com. In other words, you trade Slav immigrants for diversity immigrants. So did you really end up in a better place? I'll leave that up to the audience to decide. Ultimately, Wilders is going to run up against the obstacle that is coalition parliamentary politics. He needs other people to reach a majority and actually govern. He has 37 seats, but he will probably have to lean on that Turkish chick with the Party for Freedom and Democracy. The other Christian-esque, center-right-esque party, both of them have complained about immigration, but also said that the PVV, the Party for Freedom, Wilders, are too extreme. After that, you have the Democratic Farmer Labor Movement, which became popular in reaction to the environmental mandates and the farmer protests recently. And then you have the Forum for Democracy, which is led by this guy, Thierry Boutet. He's more based. I think he abandoned Christianity because he said it was cucked, and now he's a pagan. He lost seats at the expense of the Wilders Party, which often happens. You see this massive right-wing breakthrough, but it's them taking seats from other right-wing parties. Although that's not necessarily all bad. I want to give Baudet credit because he pumped and dumped that wannabe Tommy Lauren, Iwa Bangingcock, whatever her name is, which is important. These women need to be exposed. Now she's trying to go and marry the guy who wears the Star Trek uniform from PragerU, Will Wheaton or something like that. Honestly, all these wannabes, they always get on the internet and they try to say, oh, I'm conservative. Well, truthfully, she probably belongs in the red light district of Amsterdam. What can you expect from Wilders? I would say if he does make it into government, something attuned to Sweden. So they'll tighten asylum rules, they will deport some criminals. They're not turning back the clock, though. So if Europeans really want things to change, they're going to have to do a bit more than just voting for a boomer conservative. It might seem as though folks are waking up, but it's also that dynamic where a lot of people think they can vote away their problems and feel better when those issues are far deeper and need to be rooted out. Let me know what you think about this individual and his movements.